certain corners of the web seem to be convinced that the FBI and CIA thinking anything leads credence to their ideas and the shit that they are pushing. But I would argue that my ultimate argument only rests on the fact that, Donald Trump was able to appoint the director of both organizations that appear to have arrived at their conclusion via this exact process here, which is the only reason why they're supporting, the lab leak hypothesis. Both Kash Patel and John Radcliffe have come to the idea that COVID was leaked from a lab based on this. This is why this image says everything, and it's exactly why they believe what they believe. It's the truth. What they think. That's why they think it came from the lab. Trump says it, that's what he thinks. Now, I will say about all of this that because the Chinese happened to seize the animals and then sanitize the market and everything, that there is nothing. I mean, if they hadn't done that, we could run tests and show that the virus was present inside the animals and everything, and we would know this, and then we would be you have a definitive answer showing it really was a zoonotic spillover, and that we're certain of it. But we don't have that luxury, so we're stuck, dealing with probability and dealing with arguments that really are more I guess you could say circumstantial in nature, but the nature of things is such that all the cases that we absorbed in the early days of the virus were cloistered around the market, which is consistent with the zoonoptic spillover type event that happened naturally. Plus, we don't have examples of workers inside the Wuhan lab coming down with the sickness that supposedly leaked from the lab. While in November of 2019, some workers in that lab were sick with something, they were shown experiencing flu like symptoms, which COVID is not associated with. In the notes early on, the doctors were pointing out that COVID was causing pneumonia of unknown origin, and it's in there in all their paperwork on the whole thing, which ultimately points in the direction of these people had the flu, and the flu was circulating within Wuhan at the time, as well as COVID at the time when the earliest cases started showing up, and everything. The For lack of a better way of putting it, since we don't have a patient zero, the patients zero, the plural, all happened inside the Wuhan market and among Wuhan workers. In fact, over 50, like 55, 51% or so of the people presenting with symptoms were literally employees in the market in the early days of the virus and everything, which all point to the market being the epicenter of the outbreak and everything. Whether or not Fauci's notes say that the market wasn't the origin or not, if Fauci was referring to the human version of the virus, then Fauci was clearly mistaken. Period. Because it was, in fact, the market that was the origin. And so, he has no. That is now the scientific consensus on these matters. I will just say that neither Kash Patel nor John Radcliffe have arrived at their lab leak hypothesis on the basis of observational data, on the basis of observation or science or the conduction of experiments or any of that stuff. And so, they appear to have arrived at their conclusions because that's what Donald Trump thinks. these two men will continue to suck Donald Trump off and, basically parrot whatever Donald Trump has to say about the virus. But there's no reason to lend any credence to what either of them think. And by the way, Cash Patel and Jonathan Radcliffe are respectively the directors of the CIA and FBI, which have been thoroughly corrupted and politicized by this White House, who has put, the foxes in charge of the hen house, so to speak, by stacking government agencies with the very people that are supposed, that the agencies are supposed to be protecting us against. In either event, there's no reason to take this lab hypothesis even remotely seriously because there's no observations that would support it. The likelihood and probability of this is very remote, and it is astronomical that it was, against the position that it was a lab leak. Basically, the odds are overwhelming at this point that it was, a zoonoptic spillover and not a lab leak, type event. The laws of probability are pointing very strongly towards, a natural spillover type event and everything. And, I happen to think myself that there's more reason to listen to virologists and what they have to say about this matter than there is, the directors of the CIA or FBI or these institutions, which I do not trust anywhere near as much as I do scientists, for the simple reason that virologists are hired based on, factors like merit rather than what it is like in politics, where often the directorship of an institution is, appointed by the president for reasons of political loyalty rather than merit. And so far, the people that are hired on the basis of merit are telling you that it is probably a zoonoptic spillover.